All right, let's briefly talk about wireless security. So, if we're broadcasting this information out to everybody, then we need to encrypt that data. And when you go in again to an open network, it doesn't necessarily mean the data is not encrypted. You may attach to MIC Wi-Fi and it may be encrypted with WPA2. You usually will know that's the case, but because they'll tell you that there's a password that goes along with it, and that's going to at least encrypt your data, which is better. I still don't use it when I'm going to do banking or anything like that. But what we have up on the screen is a comparison from WEP, which was marketed as wire equivalent privacy, which was a joke. And WPA came about because this was so bad, WEP was so bad, that WPA came out before WPA2 was actually implemented. And so they just basically called WPA2, because WPA was already there. In other words, makers were like, holy cow, WEP is really, really bad. It's easy to hack, so let's do something else. And they implemented a preliminary thing of the final, and this was the final. Anyway, so this shows you the type of encryption, and here's a big thing: the key rotation. In WEP, there's no key rotation. WPA and WPA2, you shouldn't be using anything lower than WPA2. I don't even run a combo, so I don't even say that you can use WPA on my networks. You have to use WPA2. Key rotation means, well, let's back up a little. You go over to your friend's house and you're like, hey, can I get on your Wi-Fi? And they go, yeah. And then you say, what's the password? And really, that's a passphrase is what it's really referred to as. And then they give you the passphrase. Now that passphrase is used to authenticate you into the system. And then from there, there's a key rotation that happens. If you're on WEP, there is no key rotation. You can hack WEP in, I don't know, it's 12 seconds. It's really easy to do. Nobody's using WEP anymore because your authentication was the WEP key. So when you say, hey, what's the password? And they give you some password, right? In WEP, that's the password. And so you're broadcasting that back and forth, and it's easy to pick up on. Where in WPA2 and WPA should just concern ourselves with 2, it's not using that. It's actually using a different key rotation that they both know about, right? And that's what's happening. And you can also authenticate in with 802.1x, and it uses EAP. And 802.1x is basically saying I'm going to tie it into my network where you have to log in and have passwords and all that stuff. And at home, we don't do that. WPA2 is hackable, and we've done it in class nearly every semester. It depends on the students because I don't show them, do this, do this, do this, do this. I want them to be in a real life lab where they have to figure it out and work as a team. So some semesters they do really well, and other semesters they don't get it. But usually it takes several hours to finally get the actual passphrase, and that's what they're going for, is trying to pick up the passphrase and now be on the network and see the data that's traveling on the network. Beyond that, WPA3 is out. It was introduced in 2018, and so hopefully a lot of makers of these wireless access points and routers will be introducing that because it does enable better authentication, increase in cryptography strength, and requiring the use of protected management frames to increase the network security. Again, I think security on a wireless network is always going to be a problem and always be easier to hack because you are broadcasting that out constantly. And so you get to see what's going on if you're a hacker and then try to crack into that. It's also going to be slower, not just because of trying to get that wavelength to work, but you're putting encryption on that wavelength as well. So everything has to be encrypted. On a wired network, most wired networks don't encrypt the data. Larger systems do. If you went to work for Microsoft or General Motors or any of these big places, they're going to have certain networks encrypted and others not. But lots of networks, the data is not really encrypted. Um, Passwords and user IDs between servers and clients will be encrypted, but the data itself is often not. And whenever you encrypt something, right, it's like if we encrypted this guide, I can't select that, but if we encrypted guide, it would end up being, 2 lines of this text down here. When you encrypt something, it's just jumbling it all up and making it hard for anybody to know where's the actual letters in this, right? That's the idea. Anyway, enough about WPA2 and so on, but I think this is a really good representation of really what's going on. You put in a passphrase, which they don't have listed here. Passphrase would be under authentication. And then it's rotating these keys behind the scenes. And so that makes it harder to crack because the key is not all the same. But over a length of time, right, you're going to see the same keys rotated. So your little boxes at home are easier to hack into than something that somebody bought for their business. And part of that is going to be key rotation. Anyway, if you have any questions, let me know.